Hey guys, I want to welcome you to another self love conversation. My name is Gloria Ward, and I'm the founder of this amazing project, the I'm Loving Me Project, where we inspire women like you to love yourself each and every day. And tonight I have a special guest. You know, we're focusing on Human Traffic Awareness Month, and we're going to speak to a survivor. Her name is Rebecca Bender. And Rebecca is the CEO of Rebecca Bender Initiative and the founder of Elevate Academy. And Rebecca is a thought leader, an advocate, a consultant who equips individuals and organizations. Basically, she's going to teach us and how to identify human trafficking, what it's all about, give us her story, and how we as women can protect ourselves. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here and just appreciate you talking about this issue and bringing me on.
Yes, ma'am. And where are you located first?
I live in Dallas, Texas as of
Um,
11 days ago.
really?
Just moved here.
Oh man, you enjoying it?
Well, I'm on the floor right now, literally, you can see the carpet. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I'm liking it so far, but I'm from Oregon. I'm a born and raised Oregonian. We're kind of, hippie crunchy, so it's going to be a
Yeah.
whole new culture for me.
All right. So if you can, just tell us your story and um I don't want to say how it happened, but your story as to how you became an advocate for human trafficking.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Southern Oregon. I was kind of a small town, middle class, all American family. My dad worked at the local lumber mill, just blue collar family. And when I was 9, my parents divorced. It was a really ugly divorce. Put a lot of, increased a lot of vulnerabilities in from me from seeing alcoholism and abuse in the home. And by the time I was 13, though, life kind of turned around. My mom had got a great job, and we were, back on track, for lack of better words. I wasn't put in an at-risk youth category in high school. I was a varsity athlete, honor roll student, but I still had deep-rooted vulnerabilities, and I still really wanted to be a part of things and be involved. And so I was a yes girl. I was, the first to jump in the back of a pickup truck for a bonfire and beer and weed. I mean, we're from Oregon, so
Right, right, right,
that was
right.
the,
I'm okay with
even though there was that school part, I still was a party girl. I don't deny that. What I loved when I was talking to my friend though, is she was like, that still doesn't give someone the right to traffic you, to hold you, to hold things over you. And that was so freeing for me because sometimes we think of, but I did this, but I did that, and we kind of put that shame on ourselves or blame ourselves for the decisions. And yes, there's absolutely a level of responsibility, but also knowing how targeted I was due to my vulnerabilities. Having someone get to know my background and my hopes and my fears and kind of exploit that was not my decision, and that
Right.
wasn't my choice. And so trying to find that difference was a real journey for me. But I graduated high school a year early. I was assigned a dorm room, and that summer I ended up getting pregnant with my boyfriend, and
Mhm.
I decided to keep my daughter and unenroll from my dorm and stay in my small town and go to community college. After my friends got through their freshman year, I ended up moving into an extra room that they had in their apartment, and now I was kind of the single mom on campus, and that was a really different experience for me. And I started having those old wounds resurface of feeling really alone and really unimportant and really unwanted. Excuse me. And that's when I met, this great guy. He seemed to have all the answers and lots of ambition, and everything was about me and the baby and him, and created this real picture of what life could be like. And I fell for it, and I fell for him. And after 6 months of dating me, he invited me to move in with him. And really, he was not who he said he was. He was not the age he said he was. He didn't have the job he said he had. But at 19, as a single mom, I didn't notice any of the red flags that I would see today as an adult, which I know most 19-year-old kids don't anyway, right? So age plays a huge factor in sometimes our vulnerability because we're impressionable, we're easily influenced. We don't realize how much our childhood has made an impact on some of the decisions we make. It's
True.
funny how you notice that when you're older, you know what I mean? Why is
Right.
that?
I think it's because, once you've gone through it, you built up a resilience. So now that you built up this resilience, you can actually look back and see all of your vulnerabilities. But that, I believe, comes with growth, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens. But
Yep.
yeah, I think your story is it's a typical girl story, though. Rebecca said that's the thing that we don't understand. If I
Hmm.
had a boyfriend who, I felt, liked me, loved me, included me in everything, I'm thinking, wow, this is actually going to go somewhere. And
Yeah.
even when I do move in with him and things are not the way he said it was, in my mind, I would say, well, he was probably doing that because he didn't want to tell me, he didn't have a lot of money, or he didn't want to tell me. I would make up all these excuses in my
Yep.
head,
That's exactly it.
right?
Yeah. You
And
justify, you
that's
minimize.
normal. But see,
Yeah.
that's normal. But when did it start to change?
Yeah. For me, it changed the day that we moved to Las Vegas. So he told me that his job was relocating him to Las Vegas. It was entertainment capital of the world. He was this music producer and all of his clients were getting gigs there. It seemed it seemed realistic for me at 19. I know some people might be like, girl, come on now. But at 19, not only did obviously he had a really nice, he had some kind of good job because he had a nice car, he had a really nice townhouse, he had obviously picked up the check and wore nice clothes. But more than that, I would actually go to events with him and we would go backstage and we would talk with the group. And obviously you're not like listening in like a detective, of course. So
Right,
if you're,
right.
you're trying to play cool, you're young, but it seemed legitimate. Here he was painting this very realistic facade for me that I believed. And when we got to Las Vegas, things changed the day that I arrived.
Mm.
He ended
And
up taking me to a dead end street. He told me get dressed up. He was going to take me out on the town, and we left my daughter, who was now not even quite one yet, I don't think. Um, we left her with his brother, who I'd met lots. I mean, again, like you're saying, this is a natural
yeah,
progression of a relationship. You meet the in-laws, you meet the
right.
family. Um, and so I put on my best club gear, borrowed my friend's fake ID. I'm in Vegas at 19. I'm living it
Yeah,
up. I'm like out of
yeah,
a farm town, I'm like, I'm just excited. I'm not even looking at red flags.
yeah, yeah.
And we drove to this dead end street. It was a deserted strip mall. There was no lights, no signs, just this big gray kind of parking lot with these buildings. And he parked the car and he said, I spent a lot of money to get you here. I put first and last on the apartment. I filled the fridge with food, and that was money I was using for my job. And I remember feeling embarrassed. I remember thinking, like, I didn't realize I put you out like that. Of course, I'll get a job, like, whatever I need to do. And he said, well, that door with the camera above it is an escort service, and I need you to go sign up. And I was like, escort sounds like prostitution. No way. And
Right.
he said, no, that's not how it works here. This is how they get dancers up to the fancy suites. And, it's like being in a bikini at the pool and you can trust me and all of these things. And I thought, well, he's in the entertainment industry. Maybe he knows better than me. But still, escort sounds like prostitution. And
Right,
I
right.
pushed back again. And that's when he slapped me across the face. And he
Mm.
said, you're going to go in that room and you're going to get my money back. And I can remember being sad, shocked. I think part of me thought, well, we're adults now because I had watched my parents fight. I thought, well, we're adults now, and you just kind of excuse it, justify it. And then I remember thinking, I don't know where my baby is. I don't know my address by heart. I'm just gonna get the money back. I'm gonna hope it's dancing, and things will be better tomorrow. And that's what I said. Things will be better tomorrow. I'll get the money back. Things will be better tomorrow. And things didn't get better.
And so now you're in that spot where you're like, okay, his brother got my kid. You know what I'm saying? And here
Mhm,
I am. This man never hit me before.
mhm,
And now he's telling me I have to go in here. And I know just by hearing from you, you're not even thinking about yourself. You're thinking about your kid, right?
mhm.
Like, okay, if I could just get through this day, go get my kid, then maybe I can go ahead and make a decision tomorrow,
Right.
right?
And every step seemed believable. So I went in, and as soon as I walked in the door, there were these desks butted up together, and these phone girls. We called them phone girls. They were women, but we called them phone girls. And there was a dry erase board on the wall, and it said blonde, brunette, redhead, Asian, exotic. And exotic meant black.
Yeah.
And all these names underneath: Bambi, Candy, Ivy. And so I'm like, oh, it's kind of like a strip club. I'd been to strip club, right? Like I'd
Hmm.
worked in a strip club already. My
Right.
aunt was a stripper. Like I'd
Mhm.
already been desensitized, like I mentioned, to a lot of things growing up.
Right.
And and so the lady hands me this paperwork, and it looks like medical release forms kind of paper, a lot of stuff. You're supposed to initial each line, and you're not really reading it. So you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But you're pretending to because you don't want to
Yeah.
look, you're
Yeah.
not, and they're watching. And she says, it just states that you won't solicit. We don't hire those kinds of girls. And I was like, see, I can believe him. It's
Oh,
dancers' names. I'm signing this form. I won't solicit. So it's like every moment kept, it's like I grasped at hope,
mhm.
and I pushed my conscience aside, even though there was that gut feeling. I pushed it aside, and I didn't want to lose the dream. I didn't want to lose this idea that finally I would have someone that loved me and my little girl. And I think that's what it was. I just didn't want to face um, what might actually be real, really happening.
And so if you can, what happened? Did you actually have to do something where you, of course you were safe, you got out, right?
Mhm.
But how was the drive back to your daughter? Like when whatever happened was over and you were able to get back in the car and get back to your daughter, what was it that was going through your mind then?
I honestly don't even remember that moment. I
Mhm.
remember the first time that I got sold, which was right after I left that room. I got back in his car, and we went immediately to the first call, and I basically was sold that night for the first time. And I've worked lots of cases legally now, and been able to help assist on a lot of different, both as an advocate and as a law enforcement assistant. And I see now that a lot of traffickers say we only have to get the girls to do it the first time. After that, it's downhill. And I remember living that. I remember that first time thinking, how did I get here? Like, I was a good kid in a good home. I got good grades. How did I get here? And I was so embarrassed. I crossed boundaries I swore I'd never cross. I knew the stigmas with women in prostitution. I was very ashamed, and I just kept thinking, think I just kept spinning out in my mind, like, how did I get here? It's like that's all I can even remember thinking. I don't even remember getting home that night for the first time. That's
Mhm.
what trauma does. Trauma actually creates these pockets, right? They call it Swiss cheese brain. And that's actually a sign of trauma. That's what I hate when law enforcement are like, she doesn't remember. You're like, no, that's actually a sign of trauma. Like psychology tells us today, trauma makes you forget pockets. It makes you remember things out of order. It's a variety of things that trauma does neurologically to us. And that made me not feel so crazy when I started having those tools about neurology and trauma, which is just fascinating. But it also brought healing for me to be
Absolutely.
okay with what I remembered.
Absolutely. And first, I just want to say thank you so much again for just telling your story because I know and I can tell, like, how emotional it gets. But for us women, I think you're the strongest person, Rebecca, because I know that could have been me.
Mhm.
Any of the women who are listening, knows it could have been them. You know why? Because it's the regular normal thing you will go through when you're in a relationship with someone, or you
Yeah.
feel like you're in a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
And it's like you're being groomed, and you're being told all these wonderful things, and it's like making your dreams come true, and then you find out it's something different, then you get blindsided,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So how, when we talk about the whole spectrum of human trafficking, we spoke to another lady who was a private investigator. She said that it's not only men, it is families involved. It is, kids at the schools who are bringing the
Yeah.
kids. Like,
Huh?
I know in your blog you said is not what people think. Well, we think right now, because I'm in Atlanta and it's very big here.
Mm-hmm.
We think you see a white truck, move away,
Right.
right? We think, you see a person walking behind you down the street, you move away,
Right.
because that is the pattern here. What are some of the things that we can look out for as women, so
Yeah.
that we can, understand what we're getting into? And even in relationships, because that's a big one, because some of
Yeah.
us single women like me, I'm
Yeah.
out there, I'm thinking this
Yeah.
guy like me, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's it's so true. Oh, there's so much. I can't wait to unpack this. So I
Yeah.
first want to just give a shout out to the Vice Undercover Unit because in Atlanta, because we do a lot of work with Gwinnett County, and we actually did a thing with them recently where they came on undercover, like they legitimately even put on masks and helped answer lots of questions, which was so great of them. We do a lot of work in your area, and I just really appreciate the team there because they could get transferred to other units that incentivize. Unfortunately, a whole nother discussion on criminal reform, justice reform. But we have people that stay in the traffic unit because they believe in protecting women and children, even when they could get moved into other places. So you got a good group there. Um, but I think exactly what you're saying. It's like we picture stranger danger because that's what movies and media has shown us. What's important to know is that as victims, like we grew up in the same county and communities and as all of you, like all anyone who wasn't trafficked, right? And so we too are picturing trafficking that way. And then when our situation isn't playing out like that, we don't think to ask for help because we're teaching our kids, scream for help if someone tries to grab you, or run away if someone offers you puppy and a candy from a white
That's
minivan.
exactly
But
right.
what we're not doing is teaching someone when their boundaries are barely tested what to do. And that's exactly what Jeffrey Epstein did. All of those girls they went home to their families every single night, and they went to school every single day. And he tested those girls. He would say, take off your clothes and give me a massage. And the girls that only took off their top and not their bottom, he didn't push a lot more. Or girls he went to touch and they were like, whoa, what are you doing? He didn't go in more. But the girls that froze, he went in on them. So we need to start teaching and being more thoughtful around when our boundaries are just barely being tested by predatory people, not just wait till the emergency moment. You know what I mean?
I do. I really do. And I
So
thank you for
important.
that.
The
Yeah.
other thing I think it's that you're taught, like you said with the other guest you had on, there's actually a lot of research that has shown there's 25 different types of human trafficking in America alone. 25. There's familial, there's pimp controlled, domestic pimp controlled, there's gang trafficking, there's cantinas, there's illicit massage, there's rural trafficking. So like trafficking really is dependent on the culture and community in which you live, right? Whether it's a trailer park up in Southern Oregon in my small town, and we got trailer parks and people living in desperate poverty, and you got a drug addicted mom on meth and she's trading her kid to her drug dealer, that's familial trafficking. Anytime you have a monetary exchange for some form of commercial, for some kind of sexual encounter, that's what makes it trafficking. The monetary component makes it trafficking. Um, it can look very different, like I said, in all these different ways. But what's important to remember is that traffickers target vulnerable people. So any of us can think of who's the most vulnerable community group of people in our community. If we can identify them, so can traffickers. And so they're going after homeless teens, they're offering them shelter and food. If only you do this, this, and this, right? And so I just think part of fighting trafficking is supporting our vulnerable communities and being that support to help prevent exploitation, whether it's through foster care, whether it's through homeless youth shelters, whether it's through communities that need a lot more support and are higher risk. That's prevention. You won't see numbers from that. You're not going to have those great
Right.
stories that are like, we came in and we got her before him or her before they got. You're not going to see that. So you have to be okay knowing that it's making a real difference to a vulnerable kid.
Well, and you know, even right now, even at this moment, Rebecca, human trafficking is so taboo. I know our governor don't even want to talk about it. We don't, we don't want to say it. It is, you kind of just turning a blind eye to it, because
Mhm.
if you shed a light on it, you'll see how big it is and who's involved and what's involved. But my question is, as a survivor, what how do you get back to normal life? Like, how do you incorporate yourself in society? And the biggest thing I want to know is, how do you trust someone? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you because you have to build yourself back up.
Yeah. I mean, you ask my husband, I still don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think in the beginning, I asked the question a lot to different therapists. I would say, am I normal? Is this normal? Um, I wanted to know if my thought pattern was like other women who hadn't been through this kind of trauma. Um, and it was really helpful to make new friends and hear some of the things they struggled with and realized, wow, we're actually a lot more alike than we're different. And everyone has felt shame. Everyone has been hurt. Everyone has been hurt by a parent, even if they, even unintentionally. Um, right? All of us have had these moments that have created wounds for us. And when we can focus on that, we can support one another towards growth and towards healing and through therapy. Hey, how's that new therapist going? How's that working out for you? Do you like them? I need a referral. um, Supporting self-care, supporting our friends and our groups that we know, have things that we're all going through. And it's we're all always on the journey of growth, and
Absolutely.
we'll never
I
get
tell the
there.
ladies all the time, this is a lifelong journey, because it doesn't matter. We are all the same. We're not going to argue about your trauma being worse than mine, right?
Yeah,
Because it's like what you said, you got 25 different ways to do trafficking, but there's probably double, triple, quadruple of that of trauma that you experience.
for sure.
You could be molested, rape, and all this kind of stuff, and still not know how you fit in this society now, because somebody took away the innocence.
Right.
Somebody abused that innocence. And now you're sitting saying, how do I push myself into this society that I'm really not sure where I fit in?
Yeah.
How do I find love if I'm so jumpy, and I'm not thinking that they are going to be the same way from where I came from,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
of course, we have therapy, we have all these things, but the beautiful thing that I say about this whole thing, Rebecca, is we also have that resilience, right?
We do.
Because we
Yeah.
come out of it, knowing that the best way that we can keep ourselves in a position where we're managing it and we're growing is to turn around and help someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
You
that.
know?
Resilience, I always say too, resilience is determining that all of this can't have been for nothing.
Right.
And I'm going to fight to create something greater than before. Because I remember
Absolutely.
getting out. I finally escaped nearly 6 years, three different traffickers, two of them tattooed their names on my back, been to jail a lot, hospitalized for dehydration over exhaustion. I mean, I was beaten multiple times, but at one point till my face had been broken in multiple places. I had five different areas. So like extreme, extreme. And I just was like, when I got out, I finally escaped. Feds raided our home in '06. My trafficker went to prison for tax evasion, and 2 other women went to prison for tax evasion. And I ran. I grabbed my baby and ran. I ran to the UK. I thought I got 1 year to figure this out. And I call it my Richard Gere year. We won't go there. But but I can remember that moment of getting back to the States with nothing but a suitcase and my 9-year-old little girl, and sleeping on people's couches, getting on government housing, getting on food stamps. I remember just sitting in my kitchen like, this sucks too. Like, is this freedom that I like, if this is the freedom, like, I don't want this either. Like, I'm working my butt off at this minimum wage job. I finally got a promotion and it cut my food stamps in half. So I actually took a $50 loss for a raise. This is stupid. I was just so upset. And I thought, this can't be, like resilience of getting people. No, we want to create something better. We don't want to get them back to the same vulnerabilities that got them exploited in any fashion right? Like that's what got them there. We don't want to get them back there. We want to do something better. So that took a while. It took me, and that's what we do now is we try to help teach women to build something greater than before. And how do you do that? And what does that look like? And how can we mentor you? We just got a call today. This girl's like, hey, my trafficker didn't teach me how to file nonprofit taxes. What's a 990? How do we do this? What does it do? Like literally, those are real. You don't think about, he didn't teach me team building and I'm suddenly supposed to manage. I got promoted to manager. Who's mentoring us? What classes do you take on that?
That's right.
And that's for all of us. I mean, just because one person's trafficked doesn't mean that we all don't have similar experiences with feeling trapped or ill-equipped or not having the experience to step into that next season. And that's what's so great about your group. And I know what we do for victims of trafficking. It's, we just want to help people thrive and really go after everything that they're dreaming about.
So now when you look at yourself, what do you see when you look in the mirror now?
I mean, other than the COVID-20 that we all put
right.
I'm really happy today. It took me a while to get here. I have 4 daughters now, so I have all girls. And I didn't want girls. And I can remember feeling very upset. Actually, I'm a person of faith. I remember saying to God, like, another girl, I do not want girls. I know what happens out there. And I can remember him saying, I like the woman you've become. If they turn out like you, it'll be okay. And that was the first moment when I started feeling like I could see current me, not old me. And that was really, really pivotal for my growth.
Absolutely. So tell us about this academy. Tell us about your initiative. Tell us how we can support you, follow you, everything.
Oh, thanks. So we founded a nonprofit about 7 years ago called the Rebecca Bender Initiative. It has 2 main initiatives we work on. One is Equip, where we equip community professionals, mainly law enforcement, on how to identify, respond, investigate, and prosecute cases.
Thank you, Lord. Yes.
Yes, we've worked some really incredible opportunities to just develop organic relationships and then be available to both be an advocate for victims, comb through evidence, assist during trials. I've taken the stand. We're actually assisting right now on the Zephaniah Trevino case, 16-year-old girl facing murder for her trafficker murdering a buyer. And, trafficking victims are forced to do lots of crimes so that traffickers keep their hands clean. And victims and women should not be held accountable for, what's being forced on them. So hopeful to see that DA withdraw charges against Zephaniah, call DA Cruzo, shameless plug for her and her family. And you got a 16-year-old girl's life on the line. It's a big deal. But then Elevate Academy is our other initiative, and it's the largest online school for survivors of human trafficking in the world. I'm so shocked every time I say that. We have over almost 900 students in 12 countries, and it spans over 400 US cities of survivors of human trafficking that want to make a difference with their story, that want to sit at tables on your task forces. They want to have their voice heard. They don't want to have us be a voice for the voiceless. We're like, invite us to the table. We can speak, we can speak just fine. So I'm excited to just be a part of creating classes and content that hopefully helps continue to empower women to walk into those arenas and help hold their head high and say, I'm a survivor leader and I'm here to assist on the task force. That's what we want.
Exactly. And you know what? I say this to every person and every woman that I talk to, that I interview. It's like, I know that things were rough in the beginning, but I just believe that God doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
And you had to go through it so you can do what you're doing now, because this is your purpose here. You didn't know it then, but
Right.
now that you know it, 900 women that you are a leader of, that you are showing them that they can come back and have their dignity and have self-love and get married and have a family and have true love.
Yeah. And for it
That's
to
a
ripple
gift.
out in their communities, to be able to see change in the every community they live in, it ripples out, and to see their kids thrive, and to think like we're helping change generations.
That's why
Uh,
you're here.
my
That's why
daughter,
you're here.
yeah, my daughter's now 21. My daughter that was with me while trafficking, she's on a track scholarship at UC Berkeley. She's a hurdler. Her name's Deshae Wise. She's incredible. She was in Sports Illustrated a couple years ago. Um, and I think of that. I think of the moment the feds came and me and her, I had her hop a fence and we sat in our neighbor's backyard. And I just remember looking at her now. She's a senior at graduating from Haas business degree. Like, I would have never thought that our lives would be like that. And so the change that is going to happen in her life and in our generation, because my community supported me, because my family came around me, because my church community, people helped watch her when I needed to take placement tests for college. And that's what matters. It's supporting one another to try to help get up and get out and break cycles of poverty and abuse. And it's possible. It takes a little bit of all of us helping one another, helping each other.
Rebecca, many blessings to you. Do you have a social media, Instagram or Facebook, where we can follow you?
Yeah, you can just go to I'm Rebecca Bender, no A in there, just the letter M. There's one too many characters if when I put an A in. So I'm I'm Rebecca Bender. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. You can also go to our website, RebeccaBender.org, has our books and we have free quizzes on, what type of human trafficking advocate you are based on your personality, and just lots of different resources on there. And then you can get to any social at the bottom of the website too.
Rebecca, many blessings to you, your family. I adore what you're doing. If you
Thank you.
ever need to reach out, just let us know. I appreciate you for real, because the education that you just give us women allows us to protect ourselves, but your stories, allows you guys to go out and change communities.
Thank you.
that
Thank you
that
so
is
much.
and that is the biggest thing. So many blessings to you, and thank you for coming. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And you have
All
a
right.
good night. Okay.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.